Chapter 4. An odour that was a mixture of the smells of old wooden panelling, melting candles, and 10 kinds of perfume hung in the columned hall of Monte Calvo Castle. 10 specially selected blends of scent, used by the 10 women seated at a round oak table in armchairs carved in the shape of sphinxes' heads. Fringilla Vigo regarded Tris Merigold, sitting opposite her, in a light blue dress buttoned high up to the neck. Beside Tris, remaining in the shadows, sat Kira Metz. Her large, eye-catching earrings of many-faceted citrines sparkled every now and then with 1,000 reflections. "Please continue, Miss Vigo," urged Philippa Eilhart. "We're in a hurry to learn the end of the story, and to take urgent steps." Philippa, exceptionally, wasn't wearing any jewellery apart from a large sardonyx cameo brooch pinned to her vermilion dress. Fringilla had already heard the rumour and knew whose present the cameo brooch had been, and whose profile it depicted. Sheila de Tankerville, sitting beside Philippa, was all in black, diamonds twinkling subtly. Margarita Lozantila wore heavy gold without stones on claret-coloured satins, while Sabrina Glevisig had her favourite onyxes matching the colour of her eyes in her necklace, earrings, and rings. Nearest to Fringilla sat the 2 elves, Francesca Finderbear and Ida Emain Apsivny. The Daisy of the Valleys was, as usual, regal, though today neither her coiffure nor her crimson dress were extraordinarily splendid, and the red of her diadem and necklace was that of modest, though tasteful, garnets, not rubies. Ida Emain, meanwhile, was dressed in muslins and tulles in autumn tones, so delicate and gauzy that they swayed and undulated like anemones, even in the barely perceptible draughts triggered by the movement of the centrally heated air. As usual of late, Azire var Anahid's modest but distinguished elegance aroused admiration. The Nilfgaardian sorceress wore a single emerald cabochon in a gold setting on a gold chain, resting in the high décolletage of her close-fitting dark green dress. Her manicured fingernails, painted very dark green, gave the composition a flavour of truly magical extravagance. "We are waiting, Miss Vigo," reminded Charlotte Tankerville. "Time's passing." Fringilla cleared her throat. "December came," she began her story. "Yule came, then the New Year. The Witcher calmed down sufficiently to stop mentioning Ciri in every conversation. The expeditions against monsters that he regularly undertook seemed utterly to absorb him. Well, perhaps not quite utterly." She paused. It seemed to her she could detect a flash of hatred in Tris Merigold's azure eyes, but it might just have been the gleam of flickering candle flame. Philippa snorted, playing with her brooch. "Don't overdo the modesty, Miss Vigo. This is a closed circle, a circle of women who know what, apart from pleasure, sex can serve. We all use that tool when the need arises. Please go on." "Even if during the day he maintained the appearance of secretiveness, superiority, and pride," continued Fringilla, "at night he was completely in my power. He told me everything. He paid homage to my femininity, which, considering his age, was extremely generous, I must admit. And then he fell asleep, in my arms, with his mouth on my bosom, searching for a surrogate for the maternal love he never experienced." This time, she was certain, it wasn't the gleam of candlelight. "Very well, I pray you envy me," she thought. "Envy me. There's plenty to envy." "He was," she repeated, "completely in my power." "Come back to bed, Geralt. The sky is still bloody grey." "I'm meeting someone. I have to ride to Pomerol." "I don't want you to ride to Pomerol." "I'm meeting someone. I've given my word. The manager of the vineyard will be waiting for me by the gate." "This monster hunting of yours is stupid and pointless. What are you trying to prove by killing another monster from the caverns? Your masculinity?" "I know better ways. Come on, back to bed. You aren't going to any Pomerol. At least not so quickly. The steward can wait. And anyway, what is a steward? I want to make love with you. Forgive me. I don't have time. I'll give him my word. I want to make love with you. If you want to join me for breakfast, start getting dressed. I don't think you love me, Geralt. Don't you love me anymore? Answer me. Put on that grey and pearl dress, the one with the mink trimming. It suits you very much. He was completely under my spell. He fulfilled my every wish, repeated Fringilla. He did everything I demanded of him. That's how it was. And we believe you, said Shayla de Tankerville, extremely dryly. Please continue. Fringilla coughed into her fist. The problem was his troop, she went on. That strange assemblage he called a company. Cair Maur Daifran ap Cialach, who watched me and flushed with effort trying to remember me. But he couldn't recall, because when I stayed at Dun Daifra, his grandparents' family castle, he was 6 or 7. Milva, an apparently swashbuckling and haughty girl, and whom I happened to catch crying twice, hiding in a corner of the stable. Angoulême, a flighty whelp, and Regis Tertiev Godefroy, a character I was unable to fathom. That entire gang had an influence on him I couldn't eradicate. Very well, she thought. Don't raise your eyebrows so high. Don't sneer. Wait, that's not the end of the story yet. You're yet to hear of my triumph. Every morning, she continued, the whole company would meet in the kitchen in the basement of Beauclair Palace. The royal chef was fond of them, God knows why. He always cooked something up for them, so ample and tasty that breakfast usually lasted 2 and occasionally even 3 hours. Geralt and I ate with them many times, which is how I know what absurd conversations they used to have. 2 hens, one black, the other speckled, were walking around the kitchen, stepping timidly on their clawed feet. Glancing at the company breaking their fast, the hens pecked crumbs from the floor. The company had gathered in the palace kitchen, as they did every morning. The royal chef was fond of them, God knows why, and always had something tasty for them. Today it was scrambled eggs, sour rye soup, stewed aubergine, rabbit forcemeat, goose breasts, and sausage with beetroot, with a large circle of goat's cheese on the side. They all ate briskly and in silence, apart from Angoulême, who was talking nonsense. And I tell you, we should set up a brothel here. When we've done what we have to do, let's return and open a house of ill repute. I've looked around in town. There's everything here. There are 10 barber shops alone, and 8 apothecaries, but there's only 1 knocking shop, and it's more like a seedy shithouse than a proper cat house, I tell you. There's no competition. We'll open a luxury bordello. We'll buy a big house with a garden. Angoulême have mercy. Just for respectable punters. I'll be the madam. I tell you, we'll make a fortune and live like kings. Finally, they'll elect me councillor, and then I won't let you die for sure, because when they elect me, I'll elect you, and before you can say Jack Robinson, Angoulême, we've asked. There, eat some bread and forcemeat. It was quiet for a while. What you hunting today, Geralt? Tough job. Eyewitnesses gave conflicting descriptions. The Witcher raised his head from his plate. So, it's either a Pruskianik, i.e. a fairly hard job, or a Drelichon, i.e. a fairly hard job, or an Ajempic, a fairly easy one. It might turn out the job's extremely easy, because they last saw the monster before Lammas last year. It might have bolted from Pomerol over the hills and far away. I hope it has, said Fringilla, gnawing at a goosebone. And how's Dandelion doing? The Witcher suddenly asked. I haven't seen him for such a long time that I get all my information about him from lampoons sung in the town. We aren't any better off, smiled Regis with pursed lips. All we know is that our poet is on such intimate terms with Lady Duchess Anarietta that she's allowed him, even before witnesses, to use quite a familiar cognomen. He calls her Little Weasel. That's very apt, Angoulême said with her mouth full. That Lady Duchess really does have a weaselly nose, not to mention her teeth. No one's perfect. Fringilla narrowed her eyes. How very true. The hens, the black and the speckled one, had become audacious enough to begin pecking at Milva's boots. The archer drove them away with a brisk kick and an oath. Geralt had been scrutinizing her for some time. Now he made up his mind. "Maria," he said gravely, almost harshly, "I know our conversations can't be considered serious or our jokes sophisticated, but you don't have to pull such sour faces. What's the matter?" "Something must be the matter," said Angoulême. Geralt silenced her with a fierce look. Too late. "What do you know?" Milva stood up suddenly, almost knocking over her chair. "What do you know, eh? The devil take you. You can kiss my arse, all of you. Get it?" She grabbed her cup from the table, drained it, and smashed it on the floor without a second thought, and ran out, slamming the door. "Things are serious," Angoulême began a moment later, but this time the vampire silenced her. "The matter is very serious," he confirmed. "I hadn't expected such an extreme reaction from our archer. One usually reacts like that when one is jilted, not when one jilts another." "What the bloody hell are you talking about?" said Geralt, annoyed. "Eh? Perhaps someone will finally explain what this is all about." "It's about Baron Amadis de Trastamara. The tight-lipped hunter. The very same. He proposed to Milva 3 days ago on a hunting trip. He'd been inviting her to go hunting for a month." "One hunt," Angoulême flashed her teeth impudently, "lasted 2 days, with the night spent in his hunting lodge. Get it? I swear—" "Shut up, girl. Speak, Regis." "He formally and ceremoniously asked for her hand. Milva declined, it appears, in quite a harsh way. The Baron, though he looks level-headed, was upset by the rejection, sulked like a jilted stripling, and immediately left Beauclair. And since then, Milva has been walking around downcast." "We've been here too long," muttered the Witcher. "Too long." "Now who's talking?" said Caillé, who had said nothing up until then. "Who's talking?" "Forgive me." The Witcher stood up. "We'll talk about it when I return. The steward of Pomerol Vineyard is waiting for me, and punctuality is part of the Witcher's code." After Milva's abrupt exit and the Witcher's departure, the rest of the company ate in silence. The 2 hens, one black, the other speckled, walked around the kitchen, stepping timidly on their clawed feet. "I have a small problem," said Angoulême, raising her eyes towards Fringilla from over the plate she was wiping with a crust. "I understand," nodded the sorceress. "It's nothing dreadful. When was your last period?" "What do you mean?" Angoulême leapt to her feet, frightening the chickens. "It's nothing of the sort. It's something completely different." "Tell me." "Geralt wants to leave me here when he goes back on the road." "Oh?" "He says," Angoulême snapped, "that he can't put me at risk and similar rubbish, and I want to go with him." "Oh, don't interrupt me, will ye?" "I want to go with him, with Geralt, because it's only when I'm with him I'm not afraid that one-eyed Volko will catch me. And here in Tucson—" "Angoulême," Regis interrupted her, "your words are in vain. Madame Vigo is listening but can't hear. Only one thing horrifies her, the Witcher leaving." "Oh?" Fringilla repeated, turning her head towards him and screwing up her eyes. "What are you hinting at, Mr. Turkzy of Godefroy? The Witcher leaving? And when might that be, if one might ask?" "Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow," the vampire replied in a soft voice. "But one day for certain. No offence intended." "I don't feel offended," responded Fringilla coldly. "If you had me in mind, naturally. Returning to you, Angoulême, I assure you that I shall discuss the matter of leaving Toussaint with Geralt. I guarantee you that the Witcher will hear my opinion on the subject." "Why, naturally," snorted Caillé. "How did I know you'd say that, Madame Fringilla?" The sorceress looked long and hard at him. "The Witcher," she said finally, "ought not to leave Toussaint. No one who wishes him well should encourage him to do that. Where will he have it so good as here? He is living in the lap of luxury. He has his monsters to hunt. He's earning a pretty penny from it. His friend and comrade is the favourite of the reigning Duchess, and the Duchess herself is also favourably disposed to him, mainly owing to the succubus that was haunting people's bedchambers. Yes, gentlemen, Henrietta, like all the noble ladies of Toussaint, is inordinately well disposed towards the Witcher, for the succubus has suddenly stopped haunting. The ladies of Toussaint have thus clubbed together to pay him a special bonus, which they will deposit in the Witcher's account in the Chianfanelli's bank any day now, increasing the small fortune that the Witcher has already stored up there. A pretty gesture from the ladies. Regis didn't lower his gaze. And a well-deserved bonus. It isn't easy to stop a succubus from haunting. You may believe me, Madame Fringilla. I do. And while we're on this subject, one of the palace guards claims he saw it, at night, on the battlements of Caroberta's tower, in the company of another spectre, some kind of vampire. The two demons were taking a stroll, the guard swore, and they looked as though they were friends. Do you, perhaps, know anything about this, Mr. Regis? Are you able to explain it, sir? No, I'm not, madam. Regis didn't even bat an eyelid. There are things in heaven and earth that even philosophers have never dreamed about. Without doubt there are such things, said Fringilla, nodding her black hair. Regarding, nonetheless, whether the Witcher is preparing to depart, do you know anything else? For you see, he hasn't mentioned any such plan, and he usually tells me everything. Of course he does, Kaye grunted. Fringilla ignored him. Mr. Regis? No, the vampire said after a moment's silence. No, Madame Fringilla, please worry not. The Witcher doesn't show us any greater affection or confidence than you. He doesn't whisper into our ears any secrets he would keep from you. Where then, Fringilla was as composed as granite, do these revelations about departing come from? Well, it's like our darling Angoulême's catchphrase, which brims with youthful charm. The vampire didn't bat an eyelid this time either. There comes a time when you've either got to shit or free up the shithouse. In other words, spare the other words. Fringilla interrupted sharply. Those charming ones will suffice. Silence reigned for quite some time. The two hens, the black and the speckled one, walked around, pecking whatever they could. Angoulême wiped her beetroot-stained nose with her sleeve. The vampire toyed pensively with a wooden peg from the sausage. Thanks to me, Fringilla broke the silence, Geralt has come to know Ciri's lineage, the complexities and secrets of her genealogy, known only to a few. Thanks to me, he knows what he had no idea about a year ago. Thanks to me, he has information, and information is a weapon. Thanks to me and my magical protection, he is safe from enemy scanning, and thus also from assassins. Thanks to me and my magic, his knee doesn't hurt him now, and he can bend it. Around his neck is a medallion made by my magical art, possibly not as good as his original Witcher one, but powerful anyway. Thanks to me, and only me, in the spring or summer, he will be able to face his enemies in combat, equipped with information, protected, fit, prepared, and armed. If anyone present here has done more for Geralt, given him more, may they step forward. I'd be happy to honor them. No one said anything. The hens pecked Kaye's boots, but the young Nilfgaardian paid no attention. Verily, he said with a sneer, none of us has given Geralt more than you, my lady. How did I know you'd say that? That's not the point, Madame Fringilla, began the vampire. The sorceress didn't let him finish. What is the point then? She asked aggressively. That he's with me? That we are joined by affection? That I don't want him to leave now? That I don't want a sense of guilt to destroy him? That same sense of guilt, that atonement which drove you all onto the road? Regis said nothing. Caer didn't speak either. Angoulême watched, clearly not understanding very much. "If it is written in the scrolls of destiny," the sorceress said after a moment, "that Geralt will win Ciri back, then it shall happen, irrespective of whether the Witcher goes into the mountains or whether he stays in Toussaint. Destiny catches up with people, and not the other way around. Do you understand that? Do you understand that, Lord Regis Tutsieff Godefroy?" "Better than you think, Madame Vigo." The vampire twiddled the wooden peg from the sausage. "But for me, please forgive me, destiny isn't a scroll written on by a great demiurge, nor the will of heaven, nor the inevitable verdict of some providence or other, but the result of many apparently unconnected facts, events, and occurrences. I would be inclined to agree with you that destiny catches up with people, and not just people. But the view that it can't be the other way around doesn't convince me, for such a view is facile fatalism, a paean praising torpor and indolence, a warm eiderdown and the beguiling warmth of a woman's loins. In short, life in a dream. And life, Madame Vigo, may be a dream, may also finish as a dream. But it's a dream that has to be dreamed actively, which is why, Madame Vigo, the road awaits us." "Suit yourselves!" Fringilla stood up, almost as suddenly as Milver a moment earlier. "As you wish. Blizzards, frost, and destiny await you in the mountain passes, and the expiation you so sorely search for. Suit yourselves. But the Witcher shall stay here in Toussaint with me." "I think," the vampire said calmly, "that you are wrong, Madame Vigo. The dream that the Witcher is dreaming, I humbly submit with respect, is an enchanting and beautiful one. But every dream, if dreamed too long, turns into a nightmare, and we awake from such dreams screaming." The 9 women sitting around the great round table in Monte Calvo Castle were looking fixedly at Fringilla Vigo, at Fringilla, who suddenly began to stammer. "Geralt left for the Pomerol vineyard on the morning of the 8th of January, and returned at 8 in the evening, or 9 in the morning. I don't know. I'm not sure." "Organize your thoughts," Charlotte de Tankerville said gently. "Please speak more coherently, Madame Vigo. And if part of the story discomfits you, you may simply pass over it." The speckled hen, treading cautiously on its clawed feet, was walking around the kitchen. The smell of chicken broth was in the air. The door slammed open. Geralt rushed into the kitchen. He had a bruise and a purple and red scab on his wind-burnt face. "Come on, company, get packed," he announced, without unnecessary introductions. "We're riding out, in an hour, and not a moment longer. I want to see you all on the hillock outside the town by that post, packed, in the saddle, ready for a long ride and a difficult one." That was enough. It was as though they had been waiting for this news for a long time, as though they'd been in readiness for a long time. "I'll be ready in a flash," yelled Milver, leaping up. "I'll be ready in half an hour." "I will too." Caer stood up, discarded a spoon, and looked closely at the Witcher. "But I'd like to know what it is. A whim? A lover's tiff? Or are we really leaving?" "We really are. Angoulême, why are you making faces?" "Geralt, don't worry, I'm not leaving you. I've changed my mind. You need looking after, my girl. I can't let you out of my sight. To horse, I said. Get packed and fasten on your saddlebags. And singly, so as not to raise suspicion. Outside the town, by the post on the hillock. We'll meet there in an hour." "Without fail, Geralt," yelled Angoulême. "At fucking last!" In the blink of an eye, all that was left in the kitchen were Geralt and the speckled hen, and the vampire, who went on calmly slurping chicken broth and dumplings. Are you waiting for a special invitation? The Witcher asked coldly. Why are you still sitting here, rather than loading up Dracul the mule and saying goodbye to the succubus? Geralt, Regis said calmly, giving himself a second helping from the tureen. I need as long to say goodbye to the succubus as you do to your raven-haired beauty, assuming you have any intention of saying goodbye to her. And just between you and I, you can send the youngsters to get packed by shouting, hastening, and making a fuss. I deserve something else, if only for reasons of age. A few words of explanation, please. Regis, an explanation, Geralt. The quicker you begin, the better. Yesterday morning, in accordance with your agreement, you met the steward of Pomerol Vineyard at the gate. Alcides Fierabras, the black-bearded steward of the Pomerol Vineyard he'd met in the pheasantry on Yule Eve, was waiting for the Witcher at the gate with a mule, and he in turn was dressed and equipped as though planning to journey far, far away to the ends of the earth, beyond the Solvega Gate and the Elskaderg Pass. It's close, but as a matter of fact it isn't, he responded to Geralt's sour remark. You are, sire, a visitor from the wide world. Our little Toussaint may seem a backwater to you. You think you can toss a hat from one border to the other and a dry one to boot. Well, you're mistaken. It's quite a long way to Pomerol Vineyard, which is where we're headed, and if we arrive by noon, it'll be a success. So it's a mistake, the Witcher said dryly, for us to be setting off so tardily. Well, maybe it is. Alcides Fierabras glowered at him and blew into his whiskers. But I knew not that you were the kind who was inclined to start at daybreak, for that's rare among grand lords. I'm not a grand lord. Let's be off, steward, sir. Let's not waste time on idle chatter. You took the words right out of my mouth. They took a shortcut through the town. At first, Geralt wanted to protest, afraid of getting stuck in the familiar crowded back streets. But Steward Fierabras, it turned out, knew better both the town and the times when the streets wouldn't be crowded. They rode quickly and without difficulty. They entered the town square and passed the scaffold, and the gallows displaying a hanged man. A perilous thing, the steward nodded, to make rhymes and sing airs, particularly in public. Judgments are harsh here, said Geralt, realizing what it was about. Elsewhere you're pilloried at most for a lampoon. Depends who the lampoon's about, commented Alcides Fierabras soberly, and on the rhymes. Our Lady Duchess is good and endearing, but when she's irritated... You can't stifle a song, as a friend of mine says. Not a song, but a singer you can, sir. They crossed the town and left through the Cooper's Gate, straight into the valley of the Blessure, whose rapids were briskly splashing and foaming. The snow in the fields was only in furrows and hollows, but it was quite cold. They were passed by a detachment of knights, heading, no doubt, towards the Pass of Cervantes, to the border watchtower of Vedette. Suddenly, all they could see were colourful griffins, lions, hearts, lilies, stars, crosses, chevrons, and other heraldic trifles, painted on shields and embroidered on cloaks and caparisons. Hooves drummed, pennants flapped, and a song resounded about the fortunes of a knight and his beloved, who married another instead of waiting for him. Geralt followed the detachment with his eyes. The sight of the knights errant reminded him of Reynard de Boisfren, who'd just returned from service and was recuperating in the arms of his townswoman, whose husband, a merchant, didn't return morning or night, probably having been held up somewhere on his journey by swollen rivers, forests full of beasts, and other turmoil of the elements. The Witcher wouldn't have dreamed of tearing Reynard away from his lover's embrace, but sincerely regretted not postponing the contract with Pomerol Vineyard to a later date. He'd grown fond of the knight and missed his company. Let's ride, Master Witcher. Let us ride, Master Fierabras. They rode upstream along the highway. The Blessure wound and meandered, but there was an abundance of small bridges, so they didn't have to go out of their way. Steam belched from the nostrils of Roach and the mule. What do you think, Mr. Fierabras? Will the winter last long? There were frosts at Solwyn, and the saying goes, when at Solwyn there's ice, dress warm and nice. I see. And your vines, won't the winter damage them? It's been colder." They rode on in silence. "Look there," said Fierabras, pointing. "There in the valley lies the village of Foxholes. Pots grow in the field there. Wonder of wonders. I beg your pardon. Pots. They grow in the bosom of the earth, just like that. A pure trick of nature, without any human help at all. Like spuds or turnips grow elsewhere, in foxholes pots grow, of all shapes and kinds." "Indeed. As I live and breathe, for which reason Foxholes has an agreement with the village of Dudno in Macht, because there, so the stories go, the earth bears forth pot lids." "Of all shapes and kinds." "Precisely, Master Witcher." They rode on in silence. The blessure sparkled and foamed on the rocks. "And look over yonder, Master Witcher, the ruins of the ancient borough of Duntina. That borough was the witness to dreadful scenes, if one is to believe the stories. Valgerius, who they called the Cuckold, killed his faithless wife, her lover, her mother, her sister, and her brother, cruelly and bloodily, and then sat down and cried. No one knows why." "I've heard about that." "Have you been here before?" "No." "Ah, meaning the story has travelled widely." "Precisely, Master Steward." "And that slender tower, beyond that borough over there?" The Witcher pointed. "What is it?" "Over there? That's a temple." "To which godhead?" "Who'd remember that?" "Very true. Who would?" Around noon they saw the vineyard, hillsides gently falling towards the blessure, bristling with evenly pruned vines, now misshapen and woefully leafless. At the top of the highest hill, lashed by the wind, were the soaring towers, squat keep, and barbican of Pomerol Castle. Geralt was interested to see that the road leading to the castle was well used, no less furrowed by hooves and wheel rims than the main highway. It was evident that people often turned off the highway towards Pomerol Castle. He stopped his questions until he noticed, at the foot of the castle, a dozen or so wagons with horses and covered in tarpaulins, sturdy and well-made vehicles used for transporting goods long distances. "Merchants," explained the steward when asked. "Wine merchants." "Merchants?" Geralt was surprised. "How's that? I thought the mountain passes were covered in snow and Toussaint cut off from the world. How could the merchants get here?" "There are no bad roads for a merchant," said Steward Firebrass gravely, "at least not for those who treat their trade seriously. They observe the principle, Master Witcher, that since the end is justified, the means must be found." "Indeed," Geralt said slowly. "An apposite principle, worthy of imitation, in any situation." "Without doubt. But in truth, some of the traders have been stuck here since autumn, unable to leave, but they don't lose heart. They say, 'Why, who cares? In the spring of the year, we'll be here first, before the competition shows up.' With them, they call it positive thinking." "It would be hard to fault that principle either," nodded Geralt. "One thing still interests me, Master Steward. Why do the merchants stay here in the middle of nowhere and not in Beauclair? Isn't the Duchess keen on putting them up? Perhaps she disdains merchants." "Not at all," answered Fierabras. "The Lady Duchess always invites them, while they graciously decline and stay among the vineyards." "Why?" "Beauclair, they say, is naught but feasts, balls, junkets, boozing and armour. A fellow, they say, only grows idle and stupid and wastes time instead of thinking about trade. And one should think about what's really important, about the goal guiding us, without let-up, not distract your thinking on mere bagatelles. Then, and only then, is the intended goal achieved." "Indeed, Mr. Fierabras," the Witcher said slowly. "I'm content with our shared journey. I've gained a great deal from our conversations. Truly, a great deal." Contrary to the Witcher's expectations, they didn't ride to Pomerol Castle, but a little further, to a prominence beyond the valley, where another castle rose, somewhat smaller and much more neglected. The castle was called Zuberan, Geralt was thrilled at the prospect of the upcoming work. Zuberan, dark and toothed with crumbling crenellations, looked the epitome of an enchanted ruin, and was no doubt teeming with witchcraft, marvels, and monsters. Inside, in the courtyard, instead of marvels and monsters, he saw around a dozen people preoccupied with tasks as enchanted as rolling barrels, planing planks, and nailing them together. It smelled of fresh timber, fresh lime, stale cat, sour wine, and pea soup. The pea soup was served out soon after. Made hungry by the journey, the wind and the cold, they ate briskly and in silence. They were accompanied by Steward Firabras's subordinate, introduced to Geralt as Shimon Gilka. They were served by two fair-haired women with plaits 2 ells long. They both sent the Witcher such suggestive glances he decided to hasten to his work. Shimon Gilka hadn't seen the monster. He only knew of its appearance second-hand.
It was as black as pitch, but when it crawled across the wall, the bricks could be seen through it. Like jelly it was, see, Master Witcher, or some sort of snot, if you'll excuse me. And it had long, thin limbs, and a great number of them, 8 or even more. And Yontek stood and watched until at last he had a brainwave and shouted out loud, "Die! Perish!" And then threw in an exorcism. "Croak, you bastard, by God!" Then the beastie, hop, 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 hopped away, and that's all we saw of it. Bolted into the cave mouth. Then the lad said, "If there's a monster, give us a bonus for toiling in dangerous conditions, and if you don't, we'll complain to the guild." And I says, "Your guild can kiss my—"
"When was the monster first seen?" Geralt interrupted.
"About 3 days since, bit before Yule."
"You said?" The Witcher looked at the steward. "Before Lammas." Alcides Firabras blushed in the places not covered by his beard. Gilka snorted.
"Aye, aye, Master Steward. If you want to steward, you should come here more often and not just polish a chair with your arse in your office in Beauclair. That's what I think." "I'm not interested in what you'll think," interrupted Firabras. "We're talking about the monster."
"But I've already said it. Everything what happened." "Weren't there any victims? Was no one attacked?"
"No. But last year a farmhand disappeared without trace. Some say a monster dragged him into the chasm and finished him off. Others, meanwhile, say it weren't no monster, but that the farmhand made a cowardly escape off his own bat because of debts and alimony and maintenance. Because he, mark you, played the bones hard, and on top of that was shafting the miller's daughter, and that miller's daughter rushed to the courts, and the courts ordered the farmhand to pay maintenance.
Did the monster attack anyone else?" Geralt unceremoniously interrupted his discourse. "Did anyone else see it?"
"No."
One of the serving women, pouring Geralt more of the local wine, brushed his ear with her breast, then winked encouragingly. "Let's go," said Geralt quickly. "No point idling time away talking. Take me to these cellars." Fringilla's amulet unfortunately didn't live up to the hopes pinned on it. Geralt didn't believe for a moment that the polished chrysoprase mounted in silver would replace his Witcher's wolf medallion. In any case, Fringilla hadn't given any such promises. She had assured him, however, with great conviction, that after melding with the psyche of the wearer, the amulet was capable of various things, including warning of danger. Nonetheless, either Fringilla's spells hadn't worked, or Geralt and the amulet differed in the matter of what constituted danger. The chrysoprase perceptibly twitched when, as they walked to the cellars, they crossed the path of a large ginger cat sauntering across the courtyard with its tail in the air. Indeed, the cat must have received some kind of signal, for it fled, meowing dreadfully. When, though, the Witcher went down into the cellars, it kept vibrating annoyingly, but in dry, well-ordered and clean vaults, where the only danger was the wine in huge barrels. Someone who had lost their self-control and was lying with their mouth open under the spigot would be in danger of serious overdrinking, and nothing else. The medallion didn't twitch, however, when Geralt abandoned the service part of the cellars and descended down a series of steps and drifts. The Witcher had worked out long before that there were ancient mines under most of the vineyards in Toussaint. When the vines had been planted and started to bear fruit and generate better profits, exploitation of the mines must have ceased and the mines abandoned, their corridors and galleries partly modified into wine cellars and stores. Pomerol and Suberan castles stood over a disused slate mine. It was riddled with drifts and holes, and a moment's inattention would have been enough for one to end up at the bottom of one of them with a compound fracture. Some of the holes were covered by rotten planks covered with slate powder, and thus hardly differed from the floor. An incautious step onto something like that would have been dangerous, so the medallion ought to have given him a warning. It didn't. It also didn't give a warning when a vague grey shape sprang out of a heap of slate waste about 10 paces in front of Geralt, scratched the mine floor with its claws, pranced, howled piercingly, then uttered a squeal and a snicker before tearing off down the corridor and ducking into one of the niches gaping in the wall. The Witcher swore. The magical trinket reacted to ginger cats, but not to gremlins. He'd have to talk to Fringilla about that, he thought, as he approached the opening into which the creature had vanished. The amulet twitched powerfully. About time, he thought. But right away, he pondered matters more deeply. The medallion couldn't have been that stupid after all. The standard favourite tactic of the gremlin was to flee and then slash its pursuer from an ambush with a surprise blow of its sickle-sharp talons. A gremlin might be waiting there in the darkness, and the medallion had signalled it. He waited a long time, holding his breath, intently focusing his hearing. The amulet lay placid and inert on his chest. A musty, disagreeable stench drifted from the hole. It was deadly silent. And no gremlin could have endured being quiet for so long. Without a second thought, he entered the hole on hands and knees, scraping his back against the jagged rock. He didn't get far. Something rustled and cracked. The floor gave way, and the Witcher tumbled downwards, along with a few hundredweight of sand and stones. Fortunately, it didn't last long, and there wasn't a bottomless chasm under him, but an ordinary corridor. He flew like shit off his shovel and smashed with a crunch at the foot of a pile of rotten wood. He shook the dirt from his hair and spat sand, swearing very coarsely. The amulet was twitching ceaselessly, fluttering on his chest like a sparrow inside his jacket. The Witcher stopped just short of tearing it off and flinging it away. First of all, Fringilla would have been livid. Second of all, the chrysoprase was supposed to have other magical abilities. Geralt hoped they would be less unreliable. When he tried to stand up, he laid a hand on a rounded skull and realized that what he was lying on wasn't wood at all. He stood up and quickly inspected the pile of bones. They belonged to people. At the moment of their deaths, they had all been manacled and were most probably naked. The bones were crushed with bite marks. The victims might not have been alive when they were being bitten, but he couldn't be certain. He was led out of the drift by a long corridor, which headed onwards as straight as a die. The slate wall had been worked to a smooth finish. It no longer looked like a mine. He suddenly emerged into an immense cavern whose ceiling vanished into the darkness. In the centre of the cavern was a huge black bottomless hole, over which was suspended a dangerously fragile-looking stone bridge. The jingle of water dripping from the walls echoed. Coldness and unidentifiable stenches drifted up from the chasm. The amulet hung motionless. Geralt set foot on the bridge, intent and focused, trying hard to stay well away from the crumbling balustrade. There was another corridor on the far side of the bridge. He noticed rusted cressets in the smoothly carved walls. There were also niches, some of which contained small sandstone figures, but the ceaseless dripping of water had melted and eroded them into amorphous lumps. There were also tiles bearing reliefs set into the walls. The tiles were made of a more durable material, so the reliefs were still recognizable. Geralt made out a woman with crescent horns, a tower, a swallow, a wild boar, a dolphin, and a unicorn. He heard a voice. He stopped, holding his breath. The amulet twitched. No, it wasn't an illusion. It wasn't the murmur of shifting slate or the echo of dripping water. It was a human voice. Geralt shut his eyes and looked hard, searching for the source. The voice, the Witcher could have sworn, was coming from another niche, from behind another small figure, also eroded, but not enough to remove its shapely female curves. This time, the medallion did its job. It flashed, and Geralt suddenly saw a reflection of metal in the wall. He grasped the eroded woman in a powerful embrace and twisted hard. There was a grating, and the entire niche revolved on steel hinges, revealing a spiral staircase leading upwards. The voice again sounded from the top of the stairs. Geralt didn't think twice. At the top, he found a door that opened smoothly and without any grating. Beyond the door was a tiny vaulted room. 4 enormous brass pipes with their ends flared like trumpets protruded from the wall. A chair stood in the middle between the trumpet-like openings, and on the chair sat a skeleton. On its pate it had the remains of a beretta slumped down beyond its teeth. It was wearing the rags of fine garments. Around its neck was a golden chain, and on its feet curled-toed Cordovan slippers, much gnawed by rats. The sound of a sneeze erupted from one of the horns, so loud and unexpected that the Witcher started. Then someone blew their nose, and the sound, intensified by the brass tube, was simply unbearable.
"Bless you," the pipe sounded. "Why, how your nose is running, skeleton."
Geralt shoved the skeleton off the chair, not forgetting to remove and pocket the golden chain. Then he sat down at the surveillance post, at the end of the horn. One of the men being eavesdropped on had a deep, rumbling bass voice. When he spoke, the brass tube vibrated.
"Why, how your nose is running, skeleton. Where did you catch such a chill, and when?"
"Not worth mentioning," answered the man with the runny nose. "I caught the damned illness, and now it won't subside. As soon as it lets up, it returns. Even magic doesn't help."
"Perhaps you ought to change your sorcerer,"
came another voice, grating like a rusty old hinge.
"For at the moment that Vilgefortz can't boast of much success, can he?"
"I'd say leave it,"
interjected someone speaking with characteristic, long, drawn-out syllables.
"That wasn't why we organized this meeting here in Tucson, at the world's end."
"At the end of the bloody world."
"This world's end," said the man with a cold, "is the only country I know that doesn't possess its own security service, the only core of the empire that isn't crawling with Vatia de Rideau's agents. They regard this endlessly merry and fuddled duchy as ridiculous, and no one takes it seriously. Little countries like this," said the one who stretched out his syllables, "have always been a paradise for spies and favorite locations for rendezvous. So they also attract counterintelligence and knocks, diverse professional snoopers and eavesdroppers. Perhaps it was like that long ago, but not during the distaff governments that have prevailed in Tucson for almost 100 years. I repeat, we are safe here. No one will track us down or eavesdrop on us. We can, in the guise of merchants, calmly discuss matters so vital to your ducal majesties, so vital to your private fortunes and estates."
"I despise self-interest. It's as simple as that," said the one with the grating voice, annoyed. "And I'm not here for self-interest. I'm concerned only with the good of the empire. And the good of the empire, gentlemen, is a strong dynasty. It will be detrimental and most evil for the empire of some mongrel, rotten fruit of bad blood and spawn of the corporally and morally sick northern kinglets, ascends to the throne. No, gentlemen, I, De Wet of the De Wets, shall not look on passively by the great sun at something like this, particularly since my daughter had almost been promised—"
"Your daughter, De Wet," roared the thundering bass. "What am I to say? I, who supported that pup Emir in the fight against the usurper. Indeed, the cadets set off from my residence to storm the palace. Afterwards, the little sneak looked benignly at my island, smiled, paid her compliments while he was squeezing her titties behind the curtain I happened to know. And now what? A fresh empress? Such an affront, such an outrage. The emperor of the eternal empire who prefers a stray from Sintra to the daughters of ancient houses. What?
He is on the throne by my grace, and he dares insult my Elan. No, I will not abide that.
Nor I, shouted another voice, high and gushing. He also maligned me. He discarded my wife for that Sintran stray. As luck would have it, said the man who drawled his syllables, the stray has been dispatched to the next world, so it would appear from Lord Skelen's account.
I listened to that account attentively, said the grating-voiced man, and I've come to the conclusion that nothing is certain apart from that the stray vanished. If it has vanished, it may reappear once more. It has vanished and reappeared several times since last year. Indeed, Lord Skelen, you have disappointed us greatly. It's as simple as that. You and that sorcerer Vilgefortz.
This is not the time, Joachim. Not the time to accuse and blame each other, driving a wedge into our unity. We must be a strong, unified force, and a decisive one. For it's not important if the Sintran is alive or not. An emperor who has once abused the ancient families with impunity will do it again. The Sintran is no more? Then he is liable in a few months to present us with an empress from Zerikania or Zanglibar. No, by the great sun, we shall not allow it.
We shall not allow it. It's as simple as that. Well said, Ardal. He has dashed the hopes of the Emrys family. Every moment Emir is on the throne, he damages the empire. Simple as that. And there is someone to put on the throne. Young Voris.
A loud sneeze, and then the sound of someone blowing their nose boomed out.
A constitutional monarchy, said the sneezer. It's high time for a constitutional monarchy, for a progressive political system, and afterwards democracy, the government of the people.
Imperator Voris, repeated the deep voice with emphasis. Imperator Voris Stefan Skelen, who will be married to my Elan or one of Joachim's daughters, and then I, as the Grand Chancellor of the Crown, and Yvette as the Marshal of Internal Affairs. Unless, as an advocate of some hoi polloi, you declare your resignation from the title and the position. What?
Let's leave aside historical processes, said the one with the cold in a conciliatory tone. Nothing can stop them anyhow. But for today, your Grace, Grand Chancellor Abdai, if I have any reservations about Prince Voris, it's chiefly because he is a man of iron character, proud and unyielding, whom it is difficult to sway.
If one may say something, said the drawling voice, Prince Voris has a son, a little Movran. He is a much better candidate. Firstly, he has a more compelling right to the throne, both on the spear and the distaff side. Secondly, he is a child, on whose behalf a council of regents shall govern, which means us.
Foolishness. We shall cope with his father too. We shall find a way.
We could plant my wife on him, suggested the gushing one. Be silent, Lord Bruiner. Now is not the time. Gentlemen, it behoves us to debate something else. It's as simple as that. For I would like to observe that Emir Var Emrys still reigns.
I'll say,
agreed the man with the cold, trumpeting into a handkerchief.
He lives and reigns, is well in body and in mind. The second in particular cannot be questioned after he expelled from Nilfgaard both your graces and your armies, which may have been loyal to you. How do you plan to stage a coup, Duke Ardal, when at any moment you may have to go into battle at the head of the East Army Group? And by now, Duke Joachim should probably also be with his army and the Verden Special Operations Group.
Give the acerbity a miss, Stefan Skelen, and don't make faces that only you think make you look like your new paymaster, the sorcerer Vilgefortz. And know this, Tawny Owl, since Emir suspects something, it is you and the Vilgefortz who shoulder the blame. Admit it, you'd like to capture the Sintran and trade her to gain favor with Emir, wouldn't you? Now that the girl is dead, there's nothing to trade with, is there? Emir will tear you apart with horses, simple as that. You must accept it with humility, you and the sorcerer you've allied with against us.
We must all accept it, Joachim, interjected the base. It's time to face facts. We aren't at all in a better position than Skelen. The circumstances have put us all in the same boat.
But it was Tawny Owl who put us in that boat. We were supposed to act in secret, and now what? Emir knows everything. Vate de Rido's agents are hunting Tawny Owl throughout the Empire, and we've been sent to war to get rid of ourselves, quite simply.
I'd be pleased about that, said the drawling one. I'd take advantage of it. Everyone has had enough of this current war, I can assure you, gentlemen. The army, the common folk, and above all merchants and entrepreneurs. News of a cessation of hostilities will be greeted throughout the Empire with great joy, irrespective of the result. And you, gentlemen, as commanders of the armies, have an influence on the result of the war permanently within arm's reach, so to speak, don't you? What could be easier than to don a laurel wreath in the event of the victory that ends the war? Or, in the event of defeat, to step forward as men of the moment, intercessors of the negotiations that'll put an end to the bloodshed?
True, said the one with the grating voice a moment later. By the great sun, it's true. You talk sense, Lord Loivarden.
By sending you to the front, said the bass, Emir put a noose around his own neck.
Emir is still alive, Your Grace, said the gushing one. He's alive and well. But let's not sell the bear's skin before catching the bear.
No, said the bass. First, let's kill the bear.
There was a long silence.
Assassination, then.
Death.
Death.
Death. Death. It's the only solution. As long as he's alive, Emir has supporters. When he dies, everyone will support us. The aristocracy will be on our side, for we are the aristocracy, and the aristocracy's strength is in its solidarity. A significant part of the army will be with us, particularly the part of the officer corps that remembers Emir's purges after the defeat at Sodden. And the people will be on our side, because the people are ignorant, stupid, and easily manipulated, finished Skellen, blowing his nose. It's enough to shout hurrah, make a speech from the steps of the Senate, open the prisons and lower taxes. You are absolutely right, Count, said the one who extended his syllables. Now I know why you clamor so for democracy.
I warn you, gentlemen, grated the one called Joachim, that it won't go off without a hitch. Our plan depends on Emir dying, and we can't close our eyes to the fact that Emir has many henchmen, has a corps of internal troops, and a fanatical guard. It won't be easy to hack our way through the Impera Brigade, and they, let's not delude ourselves, will fight to the last man.
And here, declared Skellen, Vilgefortz can offer us his help. We won't have to besiege the palace or fight our way through the Impera. The issue will be solved by one assassin with magical protection, as it was in Tritko just before the rebellion of the mages on Thaneth. King Radovid of Redania. That's right.
Does Vilgefortz have such an assassin?
He does. In order to prove our reliability, gentlemen, I'll tell you who it is. The sorceress Yennefer, who we are holding in prison. In prison? I heard that Yennefer was Vilgefortz's accomplice. She's his prisoner. She will carry out the assassination like a golem, bewitched, hypnotized, and programmed, and then commit suicide. A bewitched hag doesn't especially suit me, said the one who drew out his syllables, and his reluctance made him draw them out even more. Better would be a hero, an ardent idealist, an avenger. An avenger, Skellen interrupted. That fits perfectly here, Lord Loivarden. Yennefer will be avenging the harm caused her by the tyrant. Emir tormented and caused the death of her ward, an innocent child. That cruel dictator, that deviant, instead of taking care of the empire and the people, persecuted and tortured a child. For that, he won't escape vengeance. I very much approve, Ardal Abdai declared.
I do too, grated Joachim de Vet.
Splendid, gushed the Count of Broina. For outraging other men's wives, the tyrant and degenerate will receive his just deserts. Splendid. One thing, Leuwarden drawled out his syllables. In order to establish trust, Count Stefan, please reveal to us Lord Vilgefortz's current place of abode.
Gentlemen, I'm forbidden.
It will be a guarantee, a safeguard of your sincerity and devotion to the cause. Don't be afraid of betrayal, Stefan, added Epdai. None of those present here will betray us. It's a paradox. Under other conditions, perhaps among us, there'd be one who would buy his life by betraying the others. But all of us know only too well that we don't buy anything with perfidy. Emir Var Emrys doesn't forgive. He is incapable of forgiving. He has a lump of ice in place of his heart, which is why he must die. Stefan Skellen didn't hesitate for long.
Very well, he said. Let it be a safeguard of my sincerity. Vilgefortz is hiding in...
The Witcher, sitting at the openings of the trumpets, clenched his fists so hard they hurt. He pricked up his ears and racked his memory. The Witcher's doubts regarding Fringella's amulet were misplaced and were dispelled in a flash. When he entered the large cavern and approached the stone bridge above the black chasm, the medallion jerked and fluttered on his neck, now not like a sparrow, but like a large, strong bird, a rook, for example. Geralt froze. The amulet calmed down. He didn't make the smallest movement, in order that not a single rustle or even loud breath would confuse his ears. He waited. He knew that on the other side of the chasm, beyond the bridge, was whatever was lurking in the darkness. He couldn't rule out that something might also be hiding behind his back, and that the bridge was meant to be a trap. He had no intention of being caught in it. He waited until something happened.
Greetings, Witcher, he heard. We've been waiting here for you.
The voice emerging from the gloom sounded strange. But Geralt had heard voices like that before, and he knew them. The voices of creatures not accustomed to communicating using speech. Able to use the apparatus of the lungs, diaphragm, windpipe, and voice box, these creatures weren't in complete control of their articulatory apparatus, even when the construction of their lips, palates, and tongues were quite similar to those of humans. The words spoken by creatures like that, apart from their strange accent and intonation, were full of sounds unpleasant to the human ear, from hard and nastily barking to hissing and slimily soft.
We've been waiting for you, repeated the voice. We knew you'd come, lured by rumors, that you'd crawl in here under the ground to stalk, pursue, torment, and murder. You won't leave here now. You won't see the sun you've come to love so much again.
Show yourself. Something moved in the darkness on the far side of the bridge. In one place, the gloom seemed to thicken and assume a more or less human form. The creature, it seemed, never remained in the same position or place for a moment, but shifted with the help of swift, nervous, and shimmering movements. The Witcher had seen such creatures before.
A Corrid, he stated coldly. I might have expected somebody like you here. It's a wonder I haven't happened upon you before. Well.
Derision sounded in the restless creature's voice.
It's dark, but he recognized me. And do you recognize him? And him. And him.
3 more creatures emerged from the darkness, as noiselessly as ghosts. One of them, lurking behind the Corrid's back, was also humanoid in shape and general appearance, but was shorter, more hunched and more simian. Geralt knew it was a Kilmulis. The 2 other monsters, as he had rightly suspected, were skulking in front of the bridge, ready to cut off his retreat if he stepped onto it. The first, on the left, scrabbled its claws like a huge spider, stopped moving, and shuffled its numerous legs. It was a Prishkirnik. The last creature, roughly resembling a candelabra, seemed to slip straight out from the cracked slate wall. Geralt couldn't guess what it was. A monster like that didn't feature in any Witcher tomes. "I don't want to fight," he said, counting a little on the fact that the creatures had begun by talking instead of simply leaping on his back from the darkness. "I don't want to pick a fight with you, but if it comes to it, I'll defend myself."
"We've taken that into account," hissed the Corrid, "which is why there are 4 of us. Which is why we lured you here. You've driven us to a dog's life, O roguish Witcher. The most beautiful holes in this part of the world, a wonderful place for wintering. We've been wintering here almost since the dawn of time. And now you've come here hunting, you good for nothing. Chasing us, stalking us, killing us for money. We're putting an end to it and to you too.
"Listen, Corrid."
Be polite, the creature snapped. I can't stand boorishness.
"How should I address
Mr. Schweitzer?"
"And so, Mr. Schweitzer," continued Geralt, apparently obediently and meekly, "it's like this. I came here, I admit, as a Witcher, with a Witcher task. I suggest we pass over the matter. Something has occurred in these vaults, however, which has changed the situation diametrically. I've learned something extremely important to me, something that may change my entire life."
And what results from that?
I must immediately get onto the surface. Geralt was a model of calm and patience. I must immediately set off on a long journey without a moment's delay. A road which may turn out to be one from which I won't return. I doubt if I'll ever be back in these parts.
You want to buy your life like that, Witcher?
Hissed Mr. Schweitzer.
Nothing doing. Your begging is in vain. We have you in our grasp, and we won't let you out of it. We'll kill you, not just for our own sake, but for the sake of our other comrades. For our freedom and your freedom, so to speak.
I won't just never return here, Geralt continued patiently, but I shall cease my Witcher activities. I shall never kill any of you again.
You lie. You lie from fear.
But Geralt wasn't to be interrupted this time either. I must, as I've said, get out of here right away. So you have 2 alternatives to choose from. Firstly, you'll believe in my sincerity, and I'll leave you here. Or secondly, I leave here over your dead bodies.
Or thirdly,
the Corrid rasped,
you'll be the dead body.
The Witcher's sword rasped as he drew it from the scabbard on his back. Not the only one, he said unemotionally.
Certainly not the only one, Mr. Schweitzer.
The Corrid was silent for some time. The Kilmulis was rocking and rasping behind his back. The Prishgirnik was bending and straightening its limbs. The candelabra was changing its shape. Now it looked like a misshapen Christmas tree with two huge glowing eyes.
"Give us some proof," the Corrid said at last, "of your sincerity and goodwill."
"What?"
"Your sword. You claim you give up being a witcher. A witcher is his sword. Throw it into the chasm, or break it. Then we'll let you out."
For a moment, Geralt stood without moving. The water dripping from the walls and ceiling could be heard in the silence. Then, slowly, without hurrying, he jammed his sword vertically and deeply into a rocky cleft, and broke the blade with a powerful blow of his boot. The blade shattered with a whine whose echo sounded in the caverns. Water dripped from the walls, dribbling down them like tears.
"I can't believe it," the Corrid said slowly. "I can't believe anyone would be that stupid."
They all fell on him, instantly, without any shouting, noises, or commands. Mr. Schweitzer was the first to lope across the bridge, his claws extended and bearing fangs that wouldn't have shamed a wolf. Geralt let him come closer, then twisted his hips and slashed, hacking through his throat and lower jaw. The next moment, he was on the bridge and cutting open the Kilmulis with a powerful blow. He crouched and fell to the ground just in time, and the attacking candelabra flew over his head, barely scratching his jacket with its talons. The Witcher dodged away from the Prishgirnik, from its thin legs flashing like scythes. A blow from one of them hit him on the side of the head. Geralt danced, making a feint and encircling himself with a sweeping slash. The Prishgirnik leapt again, but missed. It crashed against the barrier and smashed it, tumbling into the chasm with a hail of stones. Until that moment, it hadn't emitted the merest sound, but now it howled as it hurtled into the chasm. The howling gradually faded. They attacked him from two sides. From one, the candelabra, from the other, the Kilmulis, which, although wounded and gushing blood, had managed to stand up. The Witcher jumped onto the balustrade of the bridge, felt shifting stones grinding against each other, and the whole bridge shuddering. He balanced, slipped out of reach of the candelabra's clawed feet, and found himself behind the Kilmulis's back. The Kilmulis didn't have a neck, so Geralt slashed it in the temple. But the monster's skull was like iron, so he had to hack it a second time. He lost too much time doing it. He was hit in the head. The pain exploded in his skull and eyes. He whirled around, defending himself with a parry, feeling blood pouring from under his hair, trying hard to understand what had happened. He dodged another blow of the claws and understood. The candelabra had changed shape. It was now attacking with its improbably extended legs. That had a flaw. Now its center of gravity and balance was disrupted. The Witcher ducked under the legs, drawing closer. The candelabra, seeing what was afoot, fell on its back like a cat, sticking out its rear legs, which were just as taloned as its forelegs. Geralt jumped over it, slashing mid-leap. He felt the blade cut flesh. He hunched up, turned, and cut once more, dropping to his knee. The creature screamed and threw its head forward violently, savagely snapping its massive teeth just in front of the Witcher's chest. Its huge eyes shone in the darkness. Geralt shoved it back with a powerful blow of the sword pommel and cut from close range, removing half its skull. Even without that half, the strange creature, which didn't feature in any Witcher tomes, still snapped its teeth for a good few seconds. Then it died, with a terrible, almost human sigh. The Corrid was twitching convulsively in a pool of blood. The Witcher stood over it.
I cannot believe, he said, that someone could be so stupid as to be taken in by such a simple illusion as the one with the broken sword.
He wasn't certain if the Corrid was conscious enough to understand, but actually, he didn't care.
I warned you,
he said, wiping off the blood that was pouring down his cheek.
I warned you I had to get out of here.
Mr. Schweitzer trembled violently, wheezed, whistled, and gnashed his teeth, then fell silent and stopped moving. Water dripped from the walls and ceiling.
Are you satisfied, Regis?
I am now.
In that case, the Witcher stood. Go on, run off and pack and be quick.
It won't take me very long. Omnia mea mecum porto.
What?
I have very little luggage.
So much the better. Outside the town in half an hour.
I'll be there. He'd underestimated her. She caught him in the act. He only had himself to blame. Rather than rushing, he could have ridden around the back of the palace and left Roach in the larger stables there, the one for the errant knighthood, staff and servants, and where his company also kept their horses. He hadn't done that, but had used the ducal stables owing to haste and habit, and he might have guessed there would be somebody in the stable who would inform on him. She was walking from stall to stall, kicking the straw. She was wearing a short lynx-skin coat, a white satin blouse, a black equestrian skirt, and high boots. The horses snorted, sensing the anger emanating from her.
Well, well,
she said on seeing him, flexing the riding crop she was holding.
We are bolting, without saying goodbye, for the letter which is probably lying on my table is no farewell, not after what we had. I imagine some extremely important arguments explain and justify your behavior.
They do. Sorry, Fringilla.
Sorry, Fringilla, she repeated, sneering furiously. How curt, how economical, how unpretentious, with such attention to style. The letter you left for me, I'm absolutely certain, is doubtless edited just as elegantly, without excess lavishness as regards ink.
I must ride, he uttered. You can guess why, and for whose sake. Please forgive me. I intended to flee stealthily and silently, because I didn't want you to try and come after me.
Your fears were groundless, she drawled, bending the crop. I wouldn't have gone after you, even if you'd asked me, grovelling at my feet. Oh, no, Witcher. Ride alone, die alone, freeze alone in the mountain passes. I have no obligations towards Ciri. And towards you? Do you know how many have begged for what you had? And for what you're now contemptuously rejecting, tossing away?
I'll never forget you.
Oh, she hissed. You don't know how much I feel like making sure you really want. Even if not using magic, then using this whip.
You won't do it.
You're right. I won't. I wouldn't be able to. I shall behave as befits a scorned and spurned lover. Classically, I shall walk away with my head high, with dignity and pride, swallowing back the tears, then I'll howl into a pillow and then I'll bid another.
By the end, she was almost screaming. He said nothing. Neither did she.
Geralt,
she said finally, in quite a different voice.
Stay with me. I think I love you,
she said, seeing he was delaying his answer.
Stay with me. I implore you. I've never asked anyone, nor thought I ever would. But I ask you.
Fringilla, he answered after a while. You're a woman a man can only dream about. My fault, my only fault, is that I don't have the nature of a dreamer.
You are,
she said a moment later, biting her lip,
like an angler's hook, which once it's stuck in, can only be pulled out with blood and flesh. Well, I've only got myself to blame. I knew what I was doing, playing around with a dangerous toy. Luckily, I also know how to cope with the effects. In that respect, I have an advantage over the rest of the female species.
He didn't comment.
In any case, she added, a broken heart, although it hurts greatly, a lot more than a broken arm, heals much, much more quickly.
He didn't comment that time either. Fringilla contemplated the bruise on his cheek.
How was my amulet? Does it work well?
It's quite simply wonderful. Thank you. She nodded.
Where are you riding to? She asked in a completely different voice and tone. What did you find out? You know where Vilgefortz is hiding, don't you?
Yes. Don't ask me to tell you where that is. I won't.
I'll buy that information. Quid pro quo?
Oh, yes.
I have information, she repeated, that is valuable, and to you, quite simply invaluable. I'll sell it to you in exchange for
peace of mind, he finished, looking her in the eyes. For the trust I placed in you. A moment ago there was talk of love, and now we're starting to talk of trade. She was silent for a long while. Then she hit her boot violently hard with the riding crop.
Yennefer, she quickly recited, the one whose name you called me several times in the night, in moments of ecstasy, never betrayed you, nor Ciri. She was never an accomplice of Vilgefortz. In order to rescue Cirilla, she fearlessly took an exceptional risk. She suffered a defeat and fell into Vilgefortz's hands. She was suddenly tortured into the attempts at scanning that took place last autumn. It's not known if she's alive. I don't know anymore, I swear.
Thank you, Fringilla.
Now go.
I trust you, he said without moving, and I shall never forget what was between us. I trust you, Fringilla. I won't stay with you, but I think I loved you too, in my own way. Please keep utterly secret what you are about to find out. Vilgefortz's hideout is in—
Wait,
she interrupted.
You'll tell me later. You'll disclose it later. Now, before you leave, say goodbye to me. The way you ought to say goodbye. Not with paltry letters, not with mumbled apologies. Say goodbye to me the way I desire.
She took off her lynx fur coat and tossed it down on a pile of straw. She violently tore off her blouse, beneath which she was naked. She fell onto the fur, pulling him after her, onto her. Geralt caught her by the nape of her neck, lifted up her skirt, and suddenly realized there would be no time to take his gloves off. Fringilla was fortunately not wearing gloves, or knickers. Even more fortunately, she wasn't wearing spurs either, for soon after, the heels of her riding boots were literally everywhere. It doesn't bear thinking what might have happened had she been wearing spurs. When she screamed, he kissed her, stifling the scream. The horses, scenting their furious passion, neighed, stamped, and thumped against their stalls until hay and dust fell from the ceiling.
Rhys Run Citadel in Nazaire by Lake Muirdach, Fringilla Vigo ended triumphantly. That's where Vilgefortz's hideout is. I got it out of the Witcher before he rode away. We have enough time to overtake him. He has no chance of getting there before April.
The 9 women gathered in the columned chamber of Monte Calvo Castle nodded, favouring Fringilla with looks of great appreciation.
Rhys Run,
repeated Philippa Eilhart, baring her teeth in a predatory smile and playing with a sardonyx cameo brooch fastened to her dress.
Rhys Run in Nazaire. Well, see you soon, Master Vilgefortz. See you soon.
When the Witcher gets there, hissed Kira Metz, he'll find rubble which by then won't even be stinking of ash. Or dead bodies, Sabrina Glevissig smiled enchantingly.
Well done, Miss Vigo, nodded Sherla. Over 3 months in Toussaint. But it was probably worth it.
Fringilla Vigo's eyes swept over the sorceresses sitting at the table, over Sherla, Philippa, and Sabrina Glevissig, over Kira Metz, Margarita Lozantila, and Triss Merigold, over Francesca Thunderbear and Ida Emayan, whose eyes, ringed with garish elven makeup, expressed absolutely nothing, over Azira Var Anahid, whose eyes expressed anxiety and concern. It was, she admitted, quite sincerely. The sky slowly changed from dark blue to black. An icy gale blew among the vineyards. Geralt fastened his wolfskin cloak and wrapped a woolen scarf around his neck, and felt wonderful. As usual, love expressed had raised him up to the peak of his physical, psychological, and moral powers, had erased all traces of doubt, and his thinking was clear and intense. He only regretted he would be deprived of that wonderful panacea for a long time. The voice of Reynard de Boisfrene startled him out of his reverie. "Bad weather's coming," said the knight-errant, looking eastwards from where the gale was blowing. "Make haste. If snow comes with that wind, if it catches you on the Malheur Pass, you'll be stuck in a trap. And then pray for a thaw to all the gods you venerate, know and understand." "We understand." "The Sandra will guide you for the first few days. Keep to the river. You'll pass a trapper's manufactory and reach a place where a right bank tributary flows into the Sandra. Don't forget, a right bank tributary. Its course will indicate the way to the Malheur Pass. Should you, with God's will, conquer Malheur, don't hurry too much, for you'll still have the Sans Merci and the Mont Blanc passes ahead of you. Should you conquer both of them, you'll descend into the Suduth Valley. Suduth has a warm microclimate, almost like Toussaint. Were it not for the poor soil, they would plant vines there. He broke off, embarrassed by the reproachful gazes. "Indeed," he hemmed. "To the point. At the mouth of the Suduth lies the small town of Caravista. My cousin, Guy de Boisfrene, lives there. Visit him and mention me. Should it turn out my cousin's died or gone insane, remember the direction of your journey is the Magdera Plain, the valley of the River Silt. Further on, Geralt, it's according to the maps you copied at the town cartographers. Since we're on the subject of cartography, I don't exactly understand why you asked me about some castles or other. Better forget about that, Reynard. Nothing like that took place. You heard nothing, saw nothing, even if they torture you. Understand?" "I do." "A rider," warned Cair, getting his unruly stallion under control. "A rider's galloping towards us from the palace." "If there's only one," Angoulême grinned, stroking the battle-axe hanging from her saddle, "it's small beer." The rider turned out to be Dandelion, riding like a bat out of hell. Astonishingly, the horse turned out to be Pegasus, the poet's gelding, which didn't like galloping and was not in the habit of doing so. "Well," said the troubadour, panting as though he had been carrying the gelding and not the other way around. "Well, I made it. I was afraid I wouldn't catch you." "Just don't say you're finally riding with us." "No, Geralt." Dandelion lowered his head. "I'm not. I'm staying here in Toussaint with my little weasel. I mean with Anarietta. But I couldn't not say farewell to you, or wish you a safe journey." "Thank the Duchess for everything. I'll make excuses as to why it's so sudden and without a farewell. Explain it somehow." "You took a knightly vow, and that's that. Everyone in Toussaint, including the little weasel, will understand. And here, you have it. Let it be my contribution." "Dandelion." Geralt took a heavy pouch from the poet. "We aren't suffering from a shortage of money. It's not necessary." "Let it be my contribution," repeated the troubadour. "Cash always comes in useful. And besides, it isn't mine. I took those ducats from the little weasel's private coffer. Why are you looking like that? Women don't need money.
I mean, what for? They don't drink, they don't play dice, and they're bloody women themselves. Well, farewell. Be off, because I'll burst into tears, and when it's all over, you're to stop by Toussaint on your way back and tell me everything. And I want to hug Ciri. Do you promise, Geralt? I promise. So farewell.
Wait. Geralt wheeled his horse around and rode closer to Pegasus. He took a letter surreptitiously from his bosom. Make sure this letter reaches
Fringilla Vigo.
No, Dijkstra.
Are you serious, Geralt? And how do you propose I do it?
Find a way. I know you will. And now farewell. Give us a hug, you old fool.
Give us a hug, comrade. I'll be looking out for you.
They watched him ride away and saw him trotting towards Beauclair. The sky darkened. Reynard? The Witcher turned around in the saddle. Ride with us.
No, Geralt, replied Reynard de Boisfren a moment later. I'm errant, but not asinine.
There was unusual excitement in the great columned chamber of Montecalvo Castle. The subtle chiaroscuro of candelabras that usually predominated there was replaced by the milky brightness of a huge magical screen. The image on the screen shimmered, flickered, and vanished, intensifying the excitement and tension, and anxiety.
Ha, said Philippa Eilhart, smiling predatorily. Pity I can't be there. A little action would do me good, and a little adrenaline.
Sheila de Tankerville looked at her sarcastically, but didn't say anything. Francesca Finderbear and Ida Emaen magically stabilized the image and enlarged it to fill the entire wall. They clearly saw black mountain peaks against a dark blue sky, stars reflecting in the surface of a lake, and the dark and angular shape of a castle.
I still can't be sure, said Sheila, if it wasn't a mistake to entrust the command of the strike force to Sabrina and young Metz. They broke Kira's ribs on Thaneth. She may want to get revenge. And Sabrina, why, she loves action and adrenaline a little too much. Right, Philippa? We've discussed that already.
Philippa cut her off, and her voice was as acidic as plum pickle.
We've established what there was to establish. No one will be killed without an absolute need. Sabrina and Kira's force will enter Rithran as quiet as mice, on tiptoe, hush, hush. They'll take Vilgefortz alive, without a single scratch, without a single bruise. We agreed on that, although I still think we ought to make an example, so that those in the castle who survive the night will awake screaming to the end of their days when they dream of this night. Revenge, said the sorceress from Kovir, is the delight of mediocre, weak, and petty minds.
Perhaps, agreed Philippa, with an apparently indifferent smile. But that doesn't stop it being a delight. Let's drop it. Margarita Lozantilla raised a goblet of sparkling wine. I suggest we drink to the health of Madame Fringilla Vigo, thanks to whose efforts Vilgefortz's hideout was discovered. Solid, exemplary work indeed, Madame Fringilla. Fringilla bowed, responding to the salutes. She noticed something like mockery in Philippa's black eyes and dislike in the azure gaze of Tris Merigold. She couldn't decipher the smiles of Francesca and Sheila. They are beginning, said Azirava Anahid, pointing at the magical image. They settled themselves more comfortably. Philippa dimmed the lights with a spell in order for them to see better. They saw swift black shapes peeling off from the rocks, as silent and agile as bats. Saw them flying low and then plummeting onto the battlements and machicolations of Rithran Castle. I probably haven't had a broom between my legs for a century, murmured Philippa. I'll soon forget how to fly. Sheila, staring at the screen, quietened her with an impatient hiss. Fire flashed briefly in the windows of the black castle complex. Once, twice, thrice. They knew what it was. The bolted doors and hasps splintered asunder under the impact of ball lightning. They're inside, said Asira va Anahid softly. She was the only one not observing the screen on the wall, but was staring at a crystal ball on the table.
The strike force is inside, but something's not right. Not how it's meant to be.
Fringilla felt the blood flowing from her heart to her belly. She now knew what wasn't right.
Madame Glevisig, reported Azira, is opening the direct telecommunicator.
The space between the columns and the hall suddenly lit up. In the materializing oval, they saw Sabrina Glevisig in male attire, her hair tied on her forehead with a chiffon scarf, and her face blackened with stripes of camouflage pigment. Behind the sorceress's back could be seen dirty stone walls, and on them shreds of rags, once tapestries. Sabrina extended a gloved hand hung with long strands of cobwebs towards them.
"The only thing there's plenty of here," she said, gesticulating wildly, "is this. Just this. Bloody hell, what stupidity! What a fiasco!"
"Make yourself clearer, Sabrina."
"Make what clearer?" yelled the Kaidwanian witch. "What could be clearer here? Can't you see? This is Reese Run Castle. It's empty. Empty and dirty. It's a sodding empty ruin. There's nothing here. Nothing."
Kira Metz emerged from behind Sabrina's shoulder, looking like a hellish fiend in her facial camouflage.
"There isn't and there hasn't been anyone in this castle," she said calmly, "for at least 50 years. For 50 years there hasn't been a living soul here, not counting the spiders, rats and bats. We made the landing in completely the wrong place."
"Have you made sure it isn't an illusion?"
"Do you take us for children, Philippa?"
"Listen, both of you."
Philippa Eilhart nervously ran her fingers through her hair.
"Tell the mercenaries and novices they were on maneuvers. Pay them and return. Return at once. And put a brave face on it. Do you hear? Put a brave face on it."
The oval of the communicator went out. Only the image on the wall screen remained. Reese Run Castle against the black sky, twinkling with stars, and the lake with the stars reflected in it. Fringilla Vigo looked down at the table. She felt as though the pounding blood would soon burst her cheeks.
Really?"
she said at last, unable to bear the silence in the columned hall of Montecalvo Castle.
"I really don't understand."
"But I do,"
said Tris Merigold.
"That castle,"
said Philippa, deep in thought, not paying any attention to her comrades.
"That castle, Reese Run, will have to be destroyed, utterly annihilated. And when legends and tales begin to be made up about this whole debacle, it will be necessary to subject them to scrupulous censorship. Do you understand what I mean, ladies?"
"Only too well,"
nodded Francesca Finderbear, who had been silent up until that moment. Ida Emayan, also silent, took the liberty of making quite an ambiguous snort. Fringilla Vigo still seemed stunned.
"I truly can't comprehend how it could have happened."
"Oh," said Sheila de Tankerville after a very long silence.
"It's nothing serious, Miss Vigo. No one's perfect."
Philippa snorted softly. Azira va Anahid sighed and raised her eyes towards the plafond.
"After all," added Sheila, pouting her lips, "it's befallen all of us at some time. Each of us sitting here has been cheated, taken advantage of, and made a laughingstock of by some man at some time."
"I love you. I'm charmed by your lovely form, and if you're not willing, I'll have to use force."
"Father, my father, he's gripped me at last. The Earl König's hurting me, holding me fast."
Johann Wolfgang Goethe.
Everything has been. Everything has happened. And everything has already been written about.
Visigotta of Corvo.